Hello, dear friends. The forum stayed in Davos and didn't go beyond this beautiful alpine town due to a lack of consensus and an atmosphere of pessimism. What happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. There will be no Hunger Games. I love the mountainous beauty of Switzerland. Opinion piece. Forum stayed in Davos. Globalisation fails. Bob Dylan prophesied. Times are changing. Countries are not giving up their sovereignty. Bad times for globalism. No Hunger Games to take place. Norway spoke of a painful transition. Soros spoke of the end of civilisation. Sanchez spoke of threat to world order. Archbishop Vigano denounces conspiracy. Evil cannot win by the will of heaven. Forum is not global with opposition from China and Russia. Let's start. The imposition of rules to curtail freedom of expression and the creation of a global healthy law failed at the last meeting of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, due to the resistance from free countries to cede their national sovereignty to a global government and counter initiatives by lawyers and legislators from several countries. The forum ceased to be global with the opposition of China and Russia. Proposals designed to change world events to the timeline of the movie The Hunger Games or Sinjajo didn't succeed. The social mood has been very different this year in a forum that for decades extolled globalisation as a frame of reference, nothing to do with the cheerful cartography that was drawn just a few years ago. In the midst of these scenarios, the aspect of inflation is much, if not more persistent, than economists had predicted. Despite doing well in business, the Davos man, an expression coined in the 90s by sociologist Samuel Huntington, is depressed. The term is intended to describe those who come to the Swiss Alpine Ski Resort every year for the World Economic Forum. Times are changing. The times are changing where the first will be the last and the last will be the first. As Bob Dylan sang, he prophesied the end of the game or game over, except from his home in quotes. Come and meet the people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters have risen around you, and accept it because pretty soon you will be soaked or to the bone. If it is worth saving time for you, then you'd better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times are changing. Order is fast fading, and the first will now be the last, for the times they are changing. The song was also quoted by Steve Jobs when Apple Computer introduced the first Macintosh 128K computer in 1984. The song has been performed by many other artists, including Joan Baez, the Seekers, Phil Collins, Simon & Garfunkel, Vice Squad, Eddie Vedder, Nina Simone, and Micah P. Hinson. Pessimism. Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand, showed the positive side of the problem and explained that you can be proud of both where you are from and where you come from. A Norwegian finance director said that this painful transition will be worth it for them, and the German vice-chancellor said that governments shouldn't seek to protect the citizens so much. So, who do governments serve? Less globalization and more autonomy in energy, technology, and food. The meeting took place in an atmosphere of pessimism, as there was no agreement to impose global financial regulations that would allow greater fiscal control of commercial transactions. Christine Lagarde argued that these are issues that, in quotes, are also the responsibility of central banks and the financial sector. Pedro Sanchez said the world order is in danger, and George Soros was even more alarmist when he said it would be the beginning of a third world war that would have the potential to destroy our civilization or his business. But I don't think the blood will run to the river. Spain. Pedro Sanchez's intervention at the Davos Forum has been presented by the Spanish government as an unprecedented success of diplomacy, although he barely had a face-to-face audience, as the room was almost empty. These last 4 years have cost us Spaniards nearly 15% in per capita income. In other words, we are quantitatively 50% poorer than we were 4 years ago. Therefore, Spaniards are champions in unemployment, debt and taxes. The demographic unemployment crisis is the first social risk identified for Spain. Specifically, the Forum warns that there could be, in quotes, a structural deterioration in the employment prospects and living standards of the working age population due to unemployment, low wages, precarious contracts, erosion of labor rights, etc. Spain is the only European country, together with Montenegro and Turkey, for which the labor market is the number one threat. It is also for countries such as Colombia, Angola, Bangladesh, Bolivia, Botswana, Brunei, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Congo, Ghana, Iran, Kazakhstan, Kenya, Kyrgyzstan, Mali, Namibia, Nepal, Rwanda, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and Zambia. Economic stagnation over a long period of time would be the second danger facing Spain of an economic nature, and refers to the possibility of GDP growth close to zero or very slow economic growth lasting many years. In quotes again. News from the reset. The dark side is now in panic mode in all countries. Planetary liberation has been won, and continued stakeholder pressure is needed to achieve a future of peace, health and shared abundance. Battles are always won by the higher planes, but it takes time to filter through to victory. Archbishop Vigano denounces a conspiracy against humankind. Our times are much like the times of Lord of the Rings, orc armies replicating in the hells beneath the earth, metaphorically speaking. According to Poet Talk, they have the light to cast shadows and breed creatures of fear born of poisoned imaginations. Why do the wicked not win? Why does evil destroy itself again and again? It is due to the will of heaven. As Lao Tse said, in quotes, though heaven prefers no human being, the wise man prefers heaven. To love others on their own chosen path is to establish the energy you desire in your world. Should we be preparing for some kind of power grid shutdown? No. Although attacks will occur, we are protected by a black eye. Along with the global financial restart backed by gold and assets comes a generic currency symbol that will replace all currency signs. As Texas faces a climate energy crisis, the Texas Tyler oil refinery was shut down. Hunter Games. Will there be enough food for the world this year? Global production of wheat, maize, rice, and coffee is expected to decline by 2022. Economy. The stock market closes lower on Tuesday. Wall Street retreats after the last week's rally. Wall Street returns from the long weekend in the red on inflation fears. Analysts do not expect a recession in the short term due to the rate hike. We have reached the bearish peak in the middle of the recession, says Citi. Wall Street sees any stock market rally as likely to be short-lived. 7. Gold suffers second consecutive monthly loss. 8. Bitcoin could be making moves ahead of a new fall. 9. Scotiabank apologizes for freezing Canadians' bank accounts. Yuan and ruble trade explodes by 1,000%. The ruble rises to 61 against the dollar despite European sanctions. Russian central bank downplays the role of the dollar and the euro. Supply crisis. European leaders demand Moscow to allow Ukrainian food exports. Gas war escalates as Russia curbs supplies to more Europeans. Gas moderates its rise to 0.12% after the European Union rolls out a full veto on Russia. Europe nears energy crisis as Kremlin cuts gas supplies to Shell. Russia extends gas cuts in Europe and halts Dutch, Danish and German contracts. Europe's insatiable thirst for natural gas is driving up prices. Oil's rally evaporates after hitting the highest level since March. UK and EU hit Russian oil with insurance ban. Europe's move against Putin's oil may be the last. Russian oil companies to reopen wells in June as demand picks up. Europe. EU gives to Orban's demands to sanction Russian oil. Eurozone inflation soars to 8.1% in May. Inflation smashes all forecasts and puts the ECB in serious trouble. French inflation hits another record high. The European Commission urges Italy to control debt without penalizing growth. Consumers suffer further from Russian oil ban and Chinese restart. Spain. The Bank of Spain sees a 1.8% impact on GDP from a Russia-European trade shutdown. Second, CPI climbs to 8.7% in May due to higher fuel and food prices. The Spanish stock market rises 3.11% in May despite inflation and the rise in interest rates. Spain plans to place up to 5.25 billion in pounds and debentures on Thursday. Russia-European Union trade deal could cut Spain's GDP by up to 2.1%. Americas. Colombia votes for change after Gustavo Petro's first victory. Call for a rally to reject Bukele's administration in El Salvador. The Chilean government extends the militarization of the conflicted south of the country for a fortnight. López Obrador prolongs uncertainty over the Summit of the Americas. Political erosion and social attrition plunge Latin America into uncertainty. Ministers from the Americas discuss agricultural transformation in the face of climate change. 836 tons of marijuana destroyed between Paraguay and Brazil. Russia. Russian troops take Severodonetsk. Russia shells Odessa, the only outlet on the Black Sea still controlled by Ukraine. Talks between Kiev and Moscow stall, and Erdogan suggests United Nations involvement. Putin open to cooperation with Turkey on grain exports from Ukraine. Erdogan insists to Putin that he wants control of Syria's northern strip. China. China shares rise as Shanghai opens. Chinese banks overflow with cash that no one wants to borrow. Goldman Sachs became the latest bank to cut its forecast for China's GDP from 4.5% to only 4%. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.